Sweet Science Brothers coming to you live from NYC. This is your boy Yav, and I want to talk about Gennady Golovkin, the real champ, the real recognized champ of the middleweight division, regardless of, this like little trophy lineal title that Canelo's got a hold of right now for beating up a guy who essentially wasn't even a middleweight. Anyway, I just want to talk about Gennady Golovkin because everyone seems to kind of talk about him, and there's this whole, the whole concept of that Canelo's the A side, he's the B side, and then, there's this misconception that Gennady Golovkin doesn't have options, and that's what this video is about. I want to talk about Gennady Golovkin's options and Gennady Golovkin's status in boxing right now. You see, Gennady Golovkin has a tremendous amount of haters right now, and the reality is that there's a whole like agenda-based group in boxing that has been systematically like targeting Gennady Golovkin, and I'm gonna say it right now. Basically, Fight Hype, which is Floyd Mayweather's like personal website, that's the website that he launches his little agenda-driven message. So you got Fight Hype, Dante's Boxing, and several other bullshit-ass YouTube channels that I'm not going to even bother naming. I named Dante, his channel is just as bullshit as any other, but I name his channel as, the most well-known of these agenda-driven channels. So basically you have, like, Fight Hype is like the hub, and Floyd Mayweather, or whoever the fuck, sets the propaganda tone, they'll kind of release a couple of articles, and that'll be like the agenda for the next 2 or 3 months. And all these bullshit-ass YouTube channels kind of parrot what was already said on Fight Hype and continue to put more and more spin on whatever it is that Fight Hype has decided is the new theme. So, for example, there's a well-known YouTube channel. I'm not going to name his name. Fuck him. I actually watch some of his videos. Sometimes he's good. Sometimes he's awful. It's not Dante. I'm not going to mention his name because it's, I'm just not going to waste my time refuting people. But the point is a very well-known YouTuber, and he posted a video, shitting on Andre Ward and shitting on the fact that he faked an injury to get out of fighting on the Cotto Canelo undercard, and just, frustration with Andre Ward and his bullshit-ass choices and his overhyped career. And he finally got frustrated and released the propaganda mask that he's been wearing, and he spoke the truth. And he had this video where he was shitting on Andre Ward, and the guy was speaking the truth. It was such a beautiful video. Everything he said was true, and I agreed with it. Right? So this was a point where one of these propaganda channels got passionate because the bullshit reached such a high level that the guy just got passionate and he spoke the truth for a moment. Now, literally 2 days later, Fight Hype releases a statement with Floyd Mayweather, and Floyd Mayweather begins to say that HBO is trying to create a Caucasian champion, and that there's this whole agenda to make a white champion and all of this. And Floyd Mayweather's a goddamn pussy because he doesn't want to say Gennady Golovkin's name because that's who he's referring to. It's only Gennady Golovkin. Say Gennady Golovkin. Stop pretending like HBO's doing all of this other stuff to like fabricate champions. I'm going to say this loud and clear, okay? There's nothing fraudulent about the fighters that are like winning fights right now. The reality is that Kovalev is pound for pound the best fighter alive right now. He's not number 2. Chocolatito's not number 1. Ring Magazine might have him as number 1, but Sergey Kovalev is the best fighter alive right now. Vladimir Klitschko should be at like number 3. Gennady Golovkin should be right underneath him. And then you have Lomachenko and some other Eastern European fighters that, like Victor Postal. These guys are not fraudulent. They're winning. They're beating the shit out of people because they have tremendous skill. It's not about white or black. It's about boxing. It's about beating the shit out of people with style. And that's just what they're doing. And, there's a lot of people who can't handle that because they're racist and it doesn't fit their black power agenda and it doesn't fit that false sense of superiority that a lot of like African Americans have when it comes to boxing. Because let's face it, they dominated the sport for damn near 100 years, which is cool, you know, that you dominated the sport because you were the best for a while, and right now you're not the best. You're not the fucking best. You know, you have Floyd Mayweather, he retired, okay, and he was the best at his division. But the reality is that right now, Eastern European fighters are holding like several belts and they're doing a lot of damage and they're making big wins and they're making big gains. And there's nothing wrong with that. And then African American fighters will rise and come out with their own new champions that are going to kick some ass. And it's going to kind of like, you know, there's globalization now. The Iron Curtain fell and fighters from all over the world, from Asia, everyone's coming into boxing now. And I want to explain something to a lot of motherfucking casuals and a lot of racists in general. You see, it's a globalized world now. These guys were always beating the shit out of people and they always existed and they always fucking people up. They were just doing it in their countries. And because of the Cold War and because of whatever politics and bullshit that was going on, you didn't get to see them, but they always existed and they always did some damage. Just like you guys do some damage. Now, I don't really want to get into race anymore, but these people, you know, these people who have this agenda need to be spoken out against. So, now, when they're talking about HBO and trying to create a Caucasian champion, they're full of shit. They're just talking about Gennady Golovkin because Gennady Golovkin is incredibly popular. He's stylish. He's a boss. You know, he has a nice smile, and when he talks, he's just very, very marketable. And the way he fights is something beautiful. And he's just got a lot of skill. And a lot of people, they're just hating on Gennady. It's simple. Because he actually has a chance to become the face of boxing. And they can't stand that shit, and they don't like it. So I brought up the previous YouTuber, right? And I'm not naming him, but I'm bringing this up because he had this video. He's talking about Andre Ward and the bullshit that Andre Ward's pulling. But then all of a sudden, Floyd Mayweather says what he's going to say. And 2 days later, he comes out with a video saying, yeah, Floyd has a point. What's happening with Andre Ward is bullshit. And they start trying to say that there's a white agenda when in reality that Andre Ward couldn't make 168 anymore. And he chose to fight at 173 when he fought Paul Smith. He can't make 168, and that's why he's at light heavyweight. And I'm just done talking about Andre Ward. He's fucking irrelevant, and the only thing that's going to make that motherfucker relevant is if he decides to have the balls and get in there with Sergey Kovalev. Now, he signed 2 agreements to fight Sergey Kovalev, so that fight is looking great, but Andre Ward is such a coward that I still consider that fight to be up in smoke until he's actually in the ring. I'm going to have my doubts about that fight. Now, going back to Gennady Golovkin, there's been so much shit talk about his pay-per-view. He did 150,000 buys, despite the fact that these bullshit agenda channels keep trying to say it was 97 or 90. They got some wonky-ass source that's bullshit, when all the official sources, ESPN, HBO, everyone's saying it was a little over 150,000 buys. They keep on shitting on that, when the reality is that Floyd Mayweather's first pay-per-view was 220,000 buys. Miguel Cotto's first pay-per-view was also around 200-something thousand buys. And these guys were homegrown fighters who were heavily promoted on ESPN and HBO for several years before they even had a pay-per-view. Now, Gennady Golovkin has only been fighting on HBO, on our shores, for about 2 years. Maybe 2.5. We could say he's had about 7 fights on HBO or on some type of telecast that had an international/American audience, okay? So he did 150,000 buys. That's not that bad considering Floyd Mayweather's first pay-per-view, and that's not that bad considering Miguel Cotto's first pay-per-view. Okay? Now, this pay-per-view between Canelo and Cotto, you know, Oscar De La Hoya was projecting 1.5 million buys, and one of the CEOs of Rock Nation Sports had said he was thinking it was going to do 2.2 million or something like that. But the reality is that it only did 900,000 buys. So, you know, it wasn't the big, great success that everyone thought it was going to be. It did well, but it didn't do that well. Okay? Now, Canelo no one can deny that he does have the business end right now. He has an advantage, and he is the A side. But Gennady Golovkin does not need, okay, Canelo. He doesn't fucking need Canelo. And he has a very advantageous position. He doesn't have to grovel on his hands and knees and accept a catch weight and accept anything that this fucking guy tells him he has to do. He doesn't have to do that. There's a lot of options for Gennady Golovkin. And the first of those being is that he could strip Canelo clean. He could strip him and take that WBC belt away from him, and he could quickly negotiate a deal with the winner of, the Andy Lee versus Saunders fight. And that's what him and Tom Loffa should do. That's what I would do. Because I know that right now, Canelo and his team are being cowards. And they've created their own fake-ass 155-pound illusional division. Now, mind you, Gennady Golovkin does not fucking need to succumb to all of Canelo's demands. He just made $2 million fighting David Lemieux on pay-per-view. He did 150,000 buys. Who knows? He could fight on HBO next, fight Andy Lee for another pay-per-view and do 250,000 possibly. He's got options. He does not need to accept everything Canelo tells him to do, and he may be the B side, but it ain't that type of B. Because at the end of the day, Gennady Golovkin can go ahead, strip this motherfucker and take that WBC title. He could tell him, listen, we're fighting at 160 in May. I'm not giving you tune-ups. I'm not accepting a catch weight. If you don't want to make a deal, I'll just strip that title from you. Thank you very much. Have a nice fucking day. He could just strip him, take the WBC title, quickly secure a deal with Andy Lee or Saunders, whoever's going to win. And the reality is that, excuse me for stuttering, the reality is that he can pay those guys more money than Canelo because he's less greedy, at the end of the day. So he can go ahead and secure that fight and get the next title and be the unified, undisputed middleweight king, and let Canelo hold that lineal title and fight a bunch of fucking bums at some fake-ass 155 catchweight, because the reality is that there ain't no superstars for him to really fight anyway, so he can't avoid Golovkin. And you know what? If he can strip Canelo of that WBC title and scoop up the next title from the winner of Andy Lee and Saunders, he'll have every single title. And then he could tell Canelo, you know what? You have the lineal title, but if you want to fight me, I'll give you a little bit more money, but we're still fighting at 160. Because I got the belts. I'm unified. Everywhere you go, everyone's going to ask you about me. When are you going to fight Triple G? When are you going to fight Triple G? Me. He could just say it like he told Max, and like he said in several interviews. He could be like, hey, Max, look at me. I have all the belts. I'm not going nowhere. Nowhere, Max. Hey, I provide big drama show for the fans. That's it. Bam. And just give this motherfucker the finger. People keep talking about how Canelo's the A side, like Gennady Golovkin's some piece of shit. It's like, the fact that Gennady Golovkin is the mandatory, and the fact that he could quickly scoop up the winner of Andy Lee Saunders, and he could literally unify the fucking division by September. He could unify the whole fucking division without even fighting Canelo. He doesn't need to go down on his hands and knees and beg this guy for the fight. And you know what? He doesn't even need that fucking lineal title, to be honest with you, because I'm gonna tell you something. That shit is fucking meaningless to me. You know what I'm saying? Miguel Cotto won that shit off of fucking Sergio Martinez that damn near had to be rolled to the ring with a fucking wheelchair that night. So I really don't give a fuck about that lineal title. You know what I'm saying? Just like Adonis Stevenson had the lineal title, Ring Magazine had to strip that motherfucker because he didn't fight nobody. So fuck it, He don't need that fucking title. He could just unify the division and tell Canelo, you know what? You're fighting me at 160, and if you don't want to fight me at 160, I'm a shine for the next fucking 3 years with all 4 of the belts, and I'm gonna fight all the contenders, and you could do your thing and hold that little trinket, and everyone's gonna know that I'm the fucking champion. Because you know what? Canelo hasn't had a fucking single fight at 160. And he hasn't defeated one middleweight yet. So what type of lineal middleweight champion is that? This is Avi from the Sweet Science Brothers, coming to you live from NYC. Holler at your boy. Let me know what you think. Like, comment, and subscribe. And let me know, because I feel like Gennady Golovkin is in a very strong position, and he don't need to fucking back down from nobody, and he don't need to grovel at anybody's table, honestly. He made $2.2 million fighting Lemieux, who no one even fucking knew of, and there's plenty of guys for him to beat the shit out of. Let me know what you think. Peace.